everyone. I'm meteorologist Jillian Johnson. Thanks for tuning into Weather Extra. Hope you've been finding those ways to stay safe and cool as we've been dealing with this brutal heat wave. Right here at home, along with millions of other Americans living coast to coast, have been dealing with nonstop or triple-digit temperatures throughout the month of July. More than 100 million Americans from California to Florida were under various heat alerts as a ridge of high pressure remained parked over the southwestern United States, bringing excessive heat across the west and soaring temperatures along the Gulf Coast into the desert Southwest this past week. We get Weather Extra started by bringing in meteorologist Sean Bellafiore, who gives us a look at what's making us so hot and shows us some of the unreal records that were broken across the world. Sean.
Extreme heat has been baking parts of the southern United States and the desert Southwest for quite some time now. Central Texas has only tied one record high temperature. That was this past Monday, but other parts of the country are seeing even more extreme weather, extreme heat in El Paso. That's where we're starting out. Now, prior to this year, El Paso had never seen more than 23 days in a row with 100-degree high temperatures, but through the 20th, that streak was up to 36 days and counting. There could be a little bit of some cooler weather in the early part of this week, so that streak may come to a close. But one place where a streak isn't going to be ending, that is going to be Phoenix, Arizona. Now, prior to this year, the longest streak of 110-degree plus high temperatures was 18 days. But through the 20th, they're already at a 21-day streak of 110-degree high temperatures or higher. And there is absolutely no end in sight to that. Not only that, but during this period of time, the all-time record warmest low temperature was set July 19th, the morning low, balmy 97 degrees. The heat dome that is across the United States is just one of a couple that is across the globe right now. The way that the atmosphere is set up, it's in this wavy pattern. That is pretty typical. The atmosphere kind of acts like an ocean. We have troughs and ridges. Now, when we have this ridge of high pressure, we have a trough, and then on the other side, we usually have another ridge of high pressure too. That is across the Atlantic Ocean, but there's actually another heat dome that is across the Mediterranean, which is causing some all-time records in parts of Europe. All-time record high temperature set in Rome, 109.2 degrees, and on July 18th, an all-time France high temperature record, 105.1 on July 18th, 2023. In Spain, Girona, right along the Mediterranean coast, all-time Spanish record high temperature of 113.5. Reporting in the studio, Sean Bellafiore, KWTX News 10.
Well, thank you, Sean. We've had a week after week of dangerous heat, and just as you heard from Sean, it's not going away anytime soon. With these triple-digit temperatures staying persistent, we want to remind you on how to stay safe in this scorching heat. Now, one of the most important things to remember is staying hydrated. Drink lots of fluids, especially water, and try to avoid alcohol or sugary drinks. If you have to spend any amount of time outdoors during this brutal Texas heat, there are a few important things to remember on top of staying hydrated. Number one, take frequent breaks outdoors. Try to find some air conditioning whenever you can. Now, number two, while you're outside, try to find some shade. Shaded areas are going to allow you to cool off faster and just overall help you feel a lot cooler too. And number three, wear loose-fitting and light-colored clothing. That will also allow your body to cool off faster. And now on to one of the most important rules you need to remember. Never leave children unattended in the car, especially a car that is turned off after sitting under the hot sun for over an hour. And cars' average temperature is more than 40 degrees hotter than what the temperature is outside. Temperatures of that magnitude can easily kill children within a few minutes. And we obviously know that the heat is dangerous to humans, but it's critical to remember that this heat is also very dangerous for our pets too. Here's some tips on how to keep your furry friends safe and happy in the heat.
Triple-digit temperatures aren't only dangerous to humans, but pets as well. The Animal Rescue Foundation out of Walnut Creek recommends only walking your dogs in the early mornings and late evenings in order to avoid the hottest part of the day.
And when you're unsure if it's too hot to walk your dog, we like to recommend touching the ground, the asphalt, with the back of your hand to get a test of how hot it is. If it's too hot for the back of your hand, it's definitely too hot for your pet's paws.
Vets say to limit your dog's exposure to sun and heat and make sure they get a lot of water. Heat stress can happen quickly and cause permanent neurological damage and even death in certain breeds.
One of the nice things about that long dog nose is that the wet surfaces inside help to cool the dog. but pugs and English bulldogs don't have that. So they're even more sensitive.
So what can you look out for? Dr. Stello says look out for these symptoms: panting, restlessness, vomiting, stumbling, and difficulty breathing. If symptoms continue after 20 minutes, seek help from a veterinarian immediately.
Now on to the other top weather stories we've been following this week. Severe storms ripped through Kentucky and North Carolina, and a tropical storm slammed into Hawaii. Here's a look at the stories we've been following. A strong tornado tore across central North Carolina on Wednesday as severe storms raced through the East Coast. The first ever EF3 tornado observed in the state in the month of July would go on and leave behind a nearly 17-mile-long trail of destruction, which ended up severely damaging a Pfizer pharmaceutical research center. The tornado was said to be 600 yards wide, with winds up to at least 150 miles per hour. The twister would go on to spend 33 minutes on the ground, sweeping through communities along I-95. And storms producing buckets of heavy rain led to a flash flood emergency in Kentucky this past Wednesday. Across the western parts of the state, nearly a foot of rain fell in less than 24 hours. One local sheriff's office said they experienced major flooding like many have never seen. Neighborhoods were left underwater. Hundreds of water rescues were conducted. Storms not only produced life-threatening flooding, but also contained 70 to 80 mile-per-hour wind gusts. In this round of devastating storms, thankfully, no injuries or deaths were reported. And switching gears and talking about the tropics, Tropical Storm Calvin brought heavy rain and gusty winds across the Hawaiian Islands last week. The state spared major impacts from Calvin because the storm took a more southerly track, passing just south of Hawaii Island. But regardless of the exact track, many still felt the storm's impact. Calvin had sustained winds of around 45 miles per hour when it made its closest approach to the Big Island. Rough surf was also reported along the Hawaiian Island chain, too. Weather Extra will be right back. Welcome back to Weather Extra. As temperatures climb to record highs around the globe this past week, an uptick in wildfire activity has been seen across numerous countries. Those fires have caused widespread devastation, forcing millions to evacuate and even left some without a place to return home to. Take a look. Here's the view of an active fire outside of Athens, Greece, where thick plumes of smoke and flames billowed over wooden areas. Flames engulfed trees as water bombers flew overhead, attempting to contain the blaze. Temperatures in Greece soared above 110 degrees this past week. And across Turkey, devastating wildfires tore through many provinces. Fires were threatening residential areas and agricultural lands. Military planes and emergency helicopters were deployed to help put a stop to the fires. Back here at home, wildfires erupted across the state of Washington. Flames got so close to I-90 that law officials had to shut the interstate down. And in California, fires have been fueled by the dry and warm conditions, as most of the Golden State have been under heat advisories and excessive heat warnings over the past week. Despite being in good shape after the historically wet winter, the recent prolonged period of heat and lack of rainfall is keeping firefighters busy across the state. Firefighters also have to fight these fires while dealing with scorching heat as temperatures climbed up to 115 degrees. And there's one country in particular that's been experiencing its worst fire season on record, and that country is Canada. About 25 million acres have burned so far this year with no end in sight. CNN's Paula Newton reports.
They've come all the way from America's Southwest.
Well, welcome to Quebec.
Now here in northern Quebec's scorched lands, joining hundreds of other American and international firefighters, doing what they can to slow wildfires that just won't quit.
At this point, we're just trying to secure the edge and make sure that the communities are safe.
The Silver State Hotshot Crew is looking for hotspots. They are firefighting crews specially trained and skilled, now taking on Canada's record-breaking wildfires.
I know you're from Montana, big sky country, but this was a big fire. This is a big territory.
In the scope for us in the States, this would be one of the largest fires ever to occur in the United States. So yeah, it's a gigafire.
The total area burned in Canada already has shattered records. Now 10 million hectares, that's almost 25 million acres, an area nearly as large as the state of Ohio and still burning.
And when they burn like this, there's no way to even put people in front of it to even stop the fire. There's no amount of resources on the ground or from the sky that's going to be able to stop one of these fires when they get the momentum.
As shocking and frankly unsettling as it is, this fire is just far too large to extinguish. In fact, the area already burned is larger than most countries on the planet. It means that not only does the fire burn, but there is going to be a lot of smoke.
And that means many American cities could be shrouded in smoke on any given day for weeks or months to come.
Don't be surprised if it continues. And secondly, this is a problem that is going to go on into the future. When it's the year to burn and the conditions are right, it's just going to continue to burn.
Here in Quebec, many were evacuated within minutes as the flames threatened towns and fires burned with raging speed.
American.
Jimmy Seaburn is grateful to see American help. He says he had minutes to leave in June and was upset to leave behind the family pets. They were fine when he returned 6 days later, but he fears his home will be threatened again.
C'est incroyable, mais c'est pas normal. Oui, it's incredible, but it's not normal.
No, no.
He says it's not normal, but cautions we should all learn to expect the worst from the weather now. The rain helps. It has finally arrived in some places, but in the words of one Canadian official, it's like a drop in an otherwise empty bucket. The mayor of this town, Chibougamau, says the rain is an answered prayer. She may not have to evacuate her town again, but they have to adapt, she says. No one imagined so much would burn so quickly.
Were you scared?
Strangely, I wasn't scared. I was mad. And then I have to come down and say, Manon, you have a job to do. And that's why, I say, I stay calm. And I said to my people, let's be patient, let's do it, and keep it zen.
It may be difficult to stay calm as Mother Nature rages. The cliche applies here in every way possible. Canada is burning, and it's not out of the woods yet.
Those historic fires are also creating a ton of smoke, and thanks to the recent week's weather pattern, winds aloft have been carrying that smoke to many cities across the United States, which have left hazy and smoke-filled skies and lowered air quality. And behind me now is what it looked like at our nation's capital this past week, where hazy skies led to code orange air quality alerts. As fires keep burning across Canada, hazardous smoke will continue to blow south into the nation. Air quality remains a high priority for local and federal offices who are monitoring conditions and issuing alerts when needed. Natalie Brand brings us a look at what goes into those alerts.
A thick haze is once again blanketing U.S. landmarks from the nation's capital to the Badlands in South Dakota. Smoke from Canada's wildfires is wreaking havoc on U.S. air quality.
You kind of get the perfect storm sometime where you get a big fire and you get the wind blowing right over that and bringing that smoke downwind.
Chet Wayland is the director of the EPA's Air Quality Assessment Division, which runs airnow.gov, posting color-coded alerts for each zip code.
The states send the data to us. We process the data in real time.
Data is collected hourly from thousands of monitoring sites nationwide, like this one in Washington, D.C. Health experts warn that tiny pollutants can be harmful.
It's small, it penetrates deep into the lungs, and that affects your health overall.
Are we going to be dealing with this until the fires are out?
We will probably have some impact from this ongoing as long as the fires are burning.
Natalie Brand, CBS News, Washington.
Coming up after the break, we take a look at this week's Degrees of Science with Chief Meteorologist Brady Taylor. We'll be right back. In last week's Degrees of Science, we introduced you to the Central Texas Astronomical Society. In this week's episode, we're talking with those members who track asteroids in order to help professional astronomers learn more about their size and shape. Here's a listen into the conversation.
When an asteroid passes in front of a star, it's called an occultation. It blocks the light of the star. And in the animation, it shows a blue line that dips down as the asteroid passes in front of the star. It's called a light curve. And the light curve then dips down, and when the star comes back out from behind the asteroid, then the light curve comes back up. And that little dip is what we time, and that actually gives us a very accurate measurement of the asteroid. You know, a lot of people ask me, you know, what we do, and a lot of people that I show my observatory to, they say, well, what do you do here? I say, well, I measure and determine the shape and size of asteroids. And then they give you a little funny look, so how do you do that? And so that is how we do it. We know how fast these asteroids are traveling, and a lot of them are traveling rather fast, some of them over 100,000 miles an hour. Okay. And so we time that, and we've got the timing, and so then we'll get the distance that it took it to travel that distance that the star blinks out. Now we've had a image of an actual path that is created, and what I tell everybody is that these events actually are a mini eclipse. And we're all looking forward to the solar eclipse in April of next year when the moon passes in front of the sun. Well, these events that we observe are just like little mini eclipses. We've got the sun or the star that's out there several light years away. And we've got these asteroids that are anywhere from several million to almost 1 billion miles away from us. And they're really, some of them are really tiny.
Why is this important for people to be watching these asteroids and timing them and trying to learn the distances and stuff like that?
Well, the main thing is that there's a lot of asteroids out there. And the ones that we actually are really afraid of are the ones that are coming in close to Earth. They call a very close approach to Earth. There's about 30,000 asteroids that are considered to be near-Earth asteroids. About 10,000 of them are between about a half a mile wide and a little larger. And so we want to keep up with those really close. But those are not the ones we normally observe. Dave and I, most of our observations are in the main asteroid belt, which lies between Mars and Jupiter, which are several million of them out there. And then there's another group that's called the Trojan asteroids, and they lie in the same orbit with Jupiter. And there's a leading edge group and there's a trailing edge group. And there's a NASA project called the Lucy project. And it's on its way now. It's launched a couple of years ago. It's the longest lasting mission that NASA's ever launched. Well, one of the first asteroids that it needs to observe, which will be in the year 2027, is called Palomili. Well, Palomili had an occultation event last year, and the Southwest Region Institute organized a occultation, they call it expedition, where they wanted to put as many people as they could across the path of the asteroid. And so they arranged about 26 people, and some of these were our IOTA people, so some professionals and amateurs were part of this group. Well, two of our group, the amateurs, actually discovered that that asteroid had a moon. And that threw the Southwest Region people into a frenzy because they have to orchestrate the probe as it gets closer to where they want it to be in 2027. So they need to find out more about the orbit of that particular moon.
I can tell you all have a passion for it, but somebody for the astronomical side are interested in it. How would they get in touch with y'all to learn more, to try to get involved?
Well, if they wanted to get involved, they go to our website, the syntexastronomy.org, and go to the contacts, which is at the top of the page. And on the contacts, I'm at the very bottom of the list. I'm the Astronomical League representative on our club. And Dave's actually our treasurer. He's on there too. But mine's the only phone number that's on there at the bottom. And so if they would want to call me and they want to get involved, I can actually talk with them and tell them exactly what equipment is necessary and the process to go through to get involved. It's really a very exciting thing to do. It's one of those things that you will witness something that very few people get to witness. And at the same time, have fun at it, but also make a contribution to real science.
To hear Brady's full interview, scan the QR code right there on your screen, or you can go to KWTX.com/degrees of science. Weather Extra will be right back. Welcome back to Weather Extra. Heat kills more Americans than any other weather-related disaster. National Weather Service data found heat deaths have outpaced hurricane deaths in the United States by more than 8-to-1 over the past decade. Now the Biden administration says they will take new actions to officially warn people about heat-related dangers. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration will use $5 million of federal money to create 2 new virtual research centers. Those will help underserved communities around the United States to better understand and prepare for extreme heat. And NASA says get ready for even hotter weather next year. The space agency issued a warning Thursday that says next year will probably be even warmer. That's because we haven't really felt the impact of El Nino yet. Instead, what we're experiencing right now has been caused by burning fossil fuels. Next year, as that continues and the natural El Nino weather cycle starts to impact things, the mercury will rise even higher. NASA scientists also, they're worried about warming ocean temperatures. Hotter oceans help fuel catastrophic weather events like hurricanes and melting glaciers that make those water levels rise. And the deep blue sea isn't quite so blue anymore. A new study shows 56% of the world's oceans have changed color in the last 20 years. In particular, water in the tropics closer to the equator are now greener. The report in the journal Nature says human-caused climate change is likely responsible. The authors say the alteration is beyond what natural variability could even explain. Teams from the National Oceanography Center in the UK and MIT are behind the new study. Their findings are based on analysis of 2 decades of ocean color data. I thought that was pretty interesting stuff there. And as a friendly reminder before we go, the uncomfortable and persistent triple-digit heat is here to stay once again this week. Make sure you and your loved ones are staying safe in these scorching temperatures. That's all we have for you on this episode of Weather Extra. We'll see you next weekend. Have a great week.